Welcome, everybody. Great to be back here again for our webinars for 2019. We do have multiple webinars on different topics scheduled throughout the rest of this calendar year. Check out our website, and you can find the schedule on the Iowa Department of Revenue website, and I'll give you some more information on that here after just a little bit. But we're here today to talk about Iowa sales and use tax. This is kind of our basics. We did have some, if you've been to a webinar before that I've done on the sales tax basics, we've got some changes on a few things. There was substantial tax reform signed into law last year, and the department is still putting out more information on a lot of those changes from the previous year, and that it does include some things with sales tax as well. So we're going to just go ahead and get started, and before I do that, I have to give you the disclaimer. I'm sorry, this is from our legal staff that we have to put this out there. Please be advised that the information in this presentation contains informal opinions and are only applicable to the factual situations referenced and to the statutes in existence at the date of this presentation. The Iowa Department of Revenue may take a contrary position in the future to what is stated here today. Any oral opinion that's given out by department personnel not pursuant to a petition for declaratory order under the Iowa Administrative Code Rule 7.24 is not binding on the department. So again, thanks for letting me get the disclaimer off my chest here. Now we can move forward and talk a bit about Iowa sales and use tax. Just starting out real basic for you, the Iowa state sales tax rate and the use tax rate is 6%. We're going to expand on some of this here in just a little while. There is also many areas of the state of Iowa that have a 1% local option sales tax. Again, there's quite a few areas that do have this. I'll talk more about local option tax in a few minutes, but you can find the jurisdictions on our website. I wanted to make sure that I just made sure that I reminded everybody there. A couple of important things to remember when it comes to Iowa sales tax, okay? The retailer cannot absorb or pay the tax for their customers. So what am I trying to say here? When you make a taxable sale, okay, you have to add sales tax onto your price, or you can have tax included in the price. However, it has to say so. It has to be stamped on your invoice or posted for public display. It has to say that. There has to be no question that if you are charging tax to someone, it should be very clear. Again, having a separate line that says state tax, local option tax down at the bottom, or something that's posted that says taxes included in the price. And just to expand on that for just a little bit, if you've been to webinars before, I've given this example quite a few times. What types of businesses may have tax included in the price? Well, two of them that come to mind immediately, bars, okay? If you stop off someplace on the way home from work or after listening to Terry give a webinar here over the lunch hour, and you decide you're gonna get a bottle of beer, and it's $3 for the bottle of beer. Most bars are set up that they will have tax included in the price. They should have a sign posted up someplace for public display that says the tax is included in the price. So when you buy that bottle of beer for $3, you're only gonna pay $3. You're not gonna pay $3 plus tax. Another common business that does this as well, movie theater tickets, okay, and concessions. If you ever go to the movies, a lot of times on a weekend, they're pretty busy, and it takes time to count out change. So as a convenience, they choose to have tax included in the price. So if you're buying a ticket to the movies on a Friday night, we'll just throw out $10 for an example, they don't have to charge you $10.60 or $10.70. It says on the fine print on the ticket, tax is included in the price. Makes it easier for counting out change. Again, you're not dealing with a lot of coins. Some of the movie theaters I've been to, I also noticed their concessions are the same way. So when you order, you order a Coke, you order some popcorn, you order whatever. It's usually even dollar amounts. Again, a little simpler than counting out a bunch of coins and a bunch of change and figuring the tax. So those are two businesses, again, the bars and the movie theaters. Those are just examples of businesses that would have tax included in the price. And again, if you look around there, they usually have that posted. That's what they're supposed to do. I'm not going to tell you every place that's doing this has it posted. They are supposed to. Just look around once in a while when you're in a place like that. Usually you'll see a sign. So at any rate, moving on, some more information here for you for Iowa tax permits. Nexus. And Nexus is a term that, that basically means that you have a presence in Iowa. And if you have Nexus in Iowa, you're required to charge and collect sales tax if you are making some type of a taxable sale within the state of Iowa. And again, this is a little bit different than it has been previously. There's two types of nexus: physical nexus, economic nexus. And the physical nexus, that one's been around for quite some time. Nothing new under the sun here. On the slide, you'll see some examples of things that will create physical nexus. This is not the all-inclusive list or anything. These are just some examples for you. If you've got an office, you know, a warehouse or some other type of business property in the state of Iowa, that's going to create a physical nexus. Again, what does that mean? It means you must collect Iowa tax if you're making taxable sales in this state. Another example, you could have a sales rep located here in Iowa. Could be on a permanent basis, could be on a temporary basis. It could also be an independent contractor as well. So if you've got some employee that's coming through here trying to solicit sales and drum up business for your company, makes a taxable sale, you're going to have to collect tax. Some other examples on here: installation of products in Iowa. You know, you've got service vehicle that comes here and does some work in Iowa. That's going to create a physical nexus. Construction contractors doing some work here in Iowa, that's going to create a physical nexus. Performing service work, I already touched on that. Delivery of products in Iowa using your own trucks. So if you are from Illinois, and let's say you deliver items in Iowa, just maybe furniture for an example, and your furniture trucks are rolling up and down the Iowa highways delivering products to people in Iowa, that creates a physical nexus. You're leasing tangible personal property in Iowa, that's going to create a physical nexus. Again, nothing new under the sun here. We've had this in place for as long as I can remember. If you've got a question or an issue on that, go to our website, and in the little search box in the upper right-hand corner, type in Nexus. And there is a Nexus questionnaire, and there is some information on Nexus. There's also a link where you can ask specific questions about your situation. That's all available on our website. The new stuff now, something that is new that just started up this year, economic nexus, okay? Economic nexus, if you are a remote seller, which means you are located outside the state of Iowa, and you have $100,000 or more of gross revenue from Iowa sales, or you make 200 or more separate sales transactions into Iowa, that's going to create economic nexus, which means that you have to collect Iowa tax. We also have another portion to this as well: marketplace facilitators that make or facilitate 100,000 or more of gross revenue from the state of Iowa from sales, or they make or facilitate Iowa sales in 200 or more separate transactions. So the type of business that this would encounter, I think you can probably, one of the online auction type of sites, that would be an example of a marketplace facilitator, assuming that they're over $100,000 of gross revenue from the state of Iowa, or they have more than 200 transactions in a year. That would create economic nexus. Again, what does this mean? It means they have to collect the Iowa sales tax and applicable local option sales tax. Note down at the bottom, third bullet that we have here, starting, this is new legislation, starting July 1st, the 200 separate transactions threshold is eliminated for both remote sellers and for marketplace facilitators. Now, if you are a remote seller or you are a marketplace facilitator, this information is spelled out for you on our website. Again, I'll give the commercial on the website here after a while and show you where to click on that you can find some more specific information. Okay, just to give you an idea of some of the different Iowa tax permits that we have related to sales and use tax, we're going to go through some of the requirements here. And the first one here is for sales tax permits, okay? For a sales tax permit, any business with nexus, either physical or economic nexus in Iowa, you must register for a sales tax permit and collect Iowa sales tax and any applicable local option sales tax. Again, this is assuming you're making taxable sales, okay? Even if you have physical or economic Nexus in Iowa, but you don't make taxable sales here, then you're not going to need a sales tax permit, okay? So I just wanted to clarify that you've got to be making taxable sales before you get a sales tax permit. We don't want you just getting a permit and filing zeros all the time, okay? So that's what I wanted to clarify for you. Use tax requirements. Retailer's use tax. A retailer that does not have a physical presence in Iowa and whose gross revenue from Iowa sales is below the amount required to collect Iowa sales tax, you can have a retail use tax permit, okay? This was part of the law change here that says Senate File 2417 that's mentioned in the second bullet. The sales and use tax collection provisions of that Senate file require many sellers who are currently using a retailer's use tax permit to obtain a retail sales tax permit instead. So let me back up for just a second. Let's say that you've had a retail use tax permit with the state of Iowa and you've been collecting and remitting tax with us for years. That's great, that's awesome. If you are over the thresholds, the $100,000 threshold and the 200 transaction threshold, which is only up to July 1st coming up here, if you meet those thresholds, you're a remote seller, you really need to cancel your retail use tax permit and apply for a retail sales tax permit, okay? So just something to be aware of. Even though what you've been doing in the past was correct, technically it's not correct anymore if you do meet our economic nexus thresholds. So something to be aware of. Iowa tax permits. If you did not know or you were not aware, applications for all of the various Iowa sales and use tax permits are available on our website. Again, as I've repeated several times here, I'll show you the website here after a bit and give you a couple little pointers on that. It's illegal to make taxable sales without an Iowa tax permit. One thing, though, to keep in mind, if you contact us and you say, hey, we want to start in business, we want to start making sales here in Iowa, and you submit the application today, you're good to go with us. Even though it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks roughly for your application to be processed and a permit number issued, as far as we're concerned, you can start in your business. As long as you've submitted the application, you are good to go as far as we're concerned. When it comes to submitting applications, again, you can submit this online on our website. There is an application there that you can submit it that way. There's also a paper application. If you don't want to do it online, that's okay. You can print off the paper application and you can submit that to us by fax or by mail, whichever is the most convenient for you. We do ask if you're submitting things electronically, use the electronic application. But we do have those options out there, whatever works best for you. As I've talked about for quite a few years, each retail location in Iowa must have its own permit. So what am I trying to say here? Well, if I have a business, let's say that I have a restaurant, that is something that requires Iowa sales tax. And let's say I've got a location over in Davenport where I'm from. We've got one here in Cedar Falls. We've got one in Des Moines. We've got one down in Ottumwa. So I've got locations all over the state of Iowa. A sales tax permit is needed for each of those locations that's making taxable sales. So just keep that in mind. You've got to have a permit for each location. Another thing that goes with that, though, you can apply for a consolidated permit so you can do one filing for all locations. It's a combined number, but you do have to have a separate permit for each location within the state of Iowa. The next bullet down here, the fourth one in this situation, the different formatting or the different number sequences for the types of permits. The first one we have up there is the retail sales tax. And number 1, that is our code that means retail sales tax, okay? The next 2 digits in this example, number 85, that's the county number where you're located. If you are located in Iowa, you're gonna have a county number of whatever county that you're physically located in. If you're from out of state and you have a retail sales tax permit, your number is gonna be 00. That's our code reference for out of state locations. Retail use tax, which we talked about a few minutes ago, these would be for out of state businesses that do not meet the economic nexus thresholds. That one is always gonna start with a 2, then there's a 00, and then there are 6 digits after that. That's the retail use tax permit. Consumer's use, and we'll talk a little bit more about consumer's use tax coming up in a few slides here, but that always starts with a 9. In this example, this is for a business that is located within the state of Iowa. So the next 2 digits, 64 in this example, that's the county where this particular one is located at. Then there are 6 digits after that. That's our number sequence. There are also direct pay permits, and there's not a lot of these, although I got to admit I don't have the exact count right here in front of me today, but there's not many of those. What I wanted to point out to you is a direct pay permit holder, if they do have a direct pay, the 4th digit in this sequence is a 9. So 177 is Polk County, then it starts with a 9. The 9 does mean a direct pay permit. And I'll touch on direct pay here on the next slide. But once you get a sales tax permit with the department, the permit is good basically forever until either you cancel it or the department revokes it. Do we go out revoking permits every day? No, not usually. If you mess up all the time, if you don't file on time, if you don't pay on time, and you have a lot of difficulties, the department can and will revoke your sales tax permit, which effectively puts you out of business. So you don't want to get in that situation. If you go out of business, there's nothing wrong with that. Please cancel your permit. If you don't cancel your permit, you're going to get a nasty letter from us sometime down the road. And we have people that call us all the time that forgot to cancel their permit, and then they're upset when they get a letter. We can overcome it. It's not a problem. But if you cancel your permit and make sure you file all returns and remit all tax due through the date of cancellation, that'll avoid you getting a nasty letter from the department. So just something to keep in mind. I did mention about direct pay permits. Direct pay permits, we've had those around for quite a while. This allows qualified purchasers, users, and consumers of tangible personal property, specified digital products, or taxable services to remit sales and use tax, including potential local option tax, directly to the department instead of to retailers. So there is a link on here. You can go to our website and find some more specific information for that. Again, this is for qualifying purchasers only. One of the qualifications is you have to be a large remitter of tax, who would be a semi-monthly, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit. But this is something, if you are a retailer and you make a sale to one of these direct pay permit holders, they're going to tell you, hey, I'm a direct pay, you don't charge me tax. That is correct. What they need to provide for documentation is they need to give you, the seller, a completed sales tax exemption certificate. There is a box on there to check for direct pay permits, and there's also a place for the direct pay permit holder to put their permit number in there. So that is legit. I just want you to be aware of it in case you ever come across one of these folks. They're not just making that up. And again, I hate to put a number on. I believe it's less than 50, but don't quote me for sure on that. So there's not lots and lots of these around the state of Iowa. Okay, still sticking with the sales tax.
Do you want to see if we can answer a couple of these questions that have come in up top here?
Nurse consultants, this is for Tony. Tony, on our website, we do have a list of taxable services. There is a publication, and I'll kind of point to where the publications are. You can look on there, and you can find information on what services are taxable. Again, I'll point it out when I do get to the website here towards the end of the presentation.
So with that, she'd have to go look to see if the service she's providing is on that list.
Correct.
And if it is,
then
she'd have to charge sales.
Then she would have to charge tax. Yep.
All right.
The taxable service list is a list of services that are taxable. We do not have a list of services that are not taxable. Again, check out our publication. I'll tell you where on our website here after a little while. Let's see what we have here. What to do if a customer refuses to pay sales tax. Wow. Well, you need to charge them sales tax. If they do not pay it, if they refuse and they short pay you, if you bill them and they short pay you, just keep a copy of that. As long as you have tried to collect the tax, I mean, we don't expect you to wrestle them in the parking lot, twist their arm, and take the sales tax out of their pocket. As long as you've made the effort to try and collect the tax, keep documentation of that in case you're ever audited by the department, and that will get you off the hook. We will go looking for the person that refused to pay. If they are claiming exemption for some reason, have them fill out an exemption certificate. At least then maybe we'd have an idea of why they're refusing to pay the sales tax. All righty. Will we cover exemption certificates received from farmers? What exactly are they exempt from? Okay, this is for Monica. We weren't going to talk specifically about ag exemptions in this one, but I can tell you that we do have a publication. Again, on our website, when I get to that part, I'll show you where to click on for publications. And there is a publication for farmers. It's called the Farmer's Guide, and that goes into things that are exempt from tax for farmers. Farmers, and I say this lovingly because my in-laws farm, farmers are not exempt from sales tax on everything. Okay, there's a very good exemption for items used directly and primarily in agricultural production. The publication provides more information on that. Okay, let's see here.
Maybe go down to Tammy's question, because we talked about the nexus. So regarding the physical nexus, if the sale occurs in the storefront of an out-of-state business, but delivery to Iowa, is it subject to Iowa sales tax?
Okay, if the sale occurs in a storefront out of the state of Iowa.
So I went over to Illinois, bought my furniture. They're probably going to charge me Illinois sales tax. They're going to deliver it to me in Iowa.
Okay, if we come up with that one, let's use that example. If delivery occurs in Iowa, then there will be Iowa sales tax due. And I'm assuming here with this physical nexus that your furniture store is loading up that furniture on the truck in Illinois, and they're bringing it over here and delivering it to our house in Iowa. If that's the case, that does establish physical nexus because your trucks are driving down the Iowa highways to deliver this furniture. Yep, that's going to be subject to Iowa sales tax, also any applicable local option sales tax. All righty, let's see here.
And in that case, they don't charge Illinois sales tax because it's being delivered to Iowa.
Correct. Delivery out of state is an exemption. It's not just an Iowa exemption. Right. That's an interstate commerce exemption. So there would be no Illinois tax due in that situation. Okay. I think maybe we'll just move on here a little bit. We'll maybe take a few more questions here after a little while. I do have a quick one here for Renee. Let's see. How do you register for a consolidated license? Okay, just to step back again, I mentioned consolidated sales tax permits. If you have multiple locations and you have a sales tax permit for each location, you can apply. That's on our business tax registration. Either apply online or you can apply by submitting the paper application by mail or fax. You can apply for a consolidated permit there. Kind of a nice feature. A lot of folks do have consolidated permits. It's up to you to decide if that's something that you want to do. If you have only 2 locations, maybe you don't want that. Maybe you do. It's up to you. But you know, maybe if you have 25 locations, that might be an attractive option for you.
So a question that goes right along with that then from Susan. So let's say you got that consolidated permit, but you're closing a location.
Okay.
How do you go about canceling a sales tax license that is under one of those consolidated numbers?
Very good questions, Susan. I'm assuming that you have still multiple locations. That's why you have a consolidated number, but one of those is going to close. What you have to do is cancel out your sales tax permit. If you go on our website, there is a link on there to complete a cancellation. Again, you can do that completed online and submit it to us, or you can print off the paper version and fax or mail it to us, and you just cancel that one permit. And that's all that's required. If you ever get down to where you don't have any, you only have one location, the consolidated automatically will get canceled because you have to have multiple locations to have a consolidated permit.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for all of the questions. Again, we will try and get to them if we can, or as we go through the rest of the presentation. We're trying to keep track of if they're relevant to the slides. Otherwise, we're going to keep going in favor of time to move through. Hopefully some of the upcoming slides will answer a few of the questions that are in there.
And we'll also have one of my slides toward the end will tell you where you can contact us either by email or by phone and get your question answered. So let's move on then. Thank you very much for the questions. again, we're sticking with the sales tax topic here. And when it comes to sales tax must be collected when a sale is sourced to Iowa. What are you talking about here, Terry? Well, if a purchaser first possesses the product in Iowa, that means it's going to be a sale that is sourced to Iowa. So assuming you're not exempt from tax, assuming this is a taxable sale, the state sales tax plus applicable local option sales tax is going to be due. Also, if a product is delivered to Iowa, okay, if you are, again, if you have economic nexus with us, you're from out of state and you're shipping products here to Iowa, the delivery occurs to us here at Cedar Falls, then the sales tax is due plus applicable local option sales tax. The other part of this is if a service, and again, as I mentioned a little earlier, there are certain enumerated or taxable services in Iowa. If a service, a taxable service, is first used in Iowa, then the sales tax and applicable local option sales tax is going to be due as well. And just to clarify for you, down on the very bottom bullet here, and I'm going to read this and then I'll explain to it for just a minute. Sales tax is paid by the final consumer and collected by the retailer. It is then remitted to the state by the retailer. Why do we spell this out? Why do we bring this up? Well, if I stop in a retail store while I'm in town here and I buy something, I get out my wallet and I pay for it, and I pay the sales tax. Okay, I'm the customer, I'm the final consumer, I paid the sales taxes to the retail store. The retail store then remits that on to the Department of Revenue. When they file their returns, no matter what their status is, they're going to remit that money to the state. Why do we bring this up? If there's ever a question about a refund, let's say that maybe I bought something that should not be taxable, and I paid sales tax on it. I hope I wouldn't do that because I've worked with the sales tax long enough. I hope I would know the difference. But at any rate, I would be entitled to submit a claim for refund. If I accidentally bought something and I should not have paid tax on it, but I did, I can send in a claim for refund. That's an Iowa 843 is the Iowa claim for refund. I can send in my receipts and my documentation and say, hey, I shouldn't have paid tax on it, because I can get a refund. The store, the retail store, is in no way able to claim a refund in that situation. The retail store did not ever, the money never came out of their pocket. So bear with me here. The retail store collected the money from me, the customer. Yeah, they put it in their bank account, and yep, they wrote out a check or they made an electronic payment to the department. But the bottom line is the money came out of my pocket to start with, not the retail store. So the retailer is not able to file a claim for refund, but I am if there's an exemption out there and I pay tax that I didn't have to. So again, hopefully that helps clarify the issue for you. What's taxable in Iowa? Well, when it comes to sales or use tax, the general rule here, all tangible personal property is taxable. Specified digital products are taxable. That's new since you saw me last a couple of years ago when we talked about sales tax. Or enumerated services, unless a specific exemption is written into the Iowa code. Okay? Some common taxable services, and this is not the all-inclusive list by any means. This is just a few examples for you. Could be some things such as cosmetology services. We all hopefully have to get a haircut or get some hair work done, some grooming done at some point in time. That is a taxable service in Iowa. Electrical repair and installation, taxable service. Lawn care, landscaping services, taxable. Photography is also a taxable service. There was a change on photography this past year, starting up here in 2019 as well. It used to be that photography was treated as a sale of a product, not a service. Well, there was a change on that. We've got a publication on our website that explains what the changes are now. Some exemptions to some of these services, again, and I'm just giving you I'm scratching the tip of the iceberg here for you. Exemptions for taxes for taxable services include any services performed on or connected with new construction, reconstruction, alteration, expansion, or remodeling of a building or structure. So, for example, if I'm going to build a brand new house and I am going to hire an electrician to come in and do the wiring for my brand new house, I just said above there that electrical repair or installation is a taxable service. However, if it's connected with the new construction of my brand new house, then that service is no longer taxable. So that's what I'm talking about here. We call that, and I'm using my air quotes here, new construction exemption. And that encompasses all of the things I have on the slide: new construction, reconstruction, alteration, expansion, or remodeling of a building or structure. Services performed for an employer. Again, an example of that would be, I'm an employee of the state of Iowa, okay? If the boss calls me up and says, Terry, get up here to the Hoover building. We need you to mow the lawn out in front of the Hoover State Office building in Des Moines. I haven't had to do that yet, so we'll see. Some days that might not be bad. But at any rate, though, lawn care is a taxable service. But if my employer, the Iowa Department of Revenue, says, get on that lawnmower and do some lawn care outside the Hoover building, that's not a taxable service. We got a couple of things going on here why it wouldn't be taxable. But number one is, I'm an employee. I'm not, my services are not taxable for the employer. The state of Iowa is exempt anyway because of governmental exemption. But you kind of see where I'm coming from there. I cannot, my services are not taxable for my employer. So if I'm doing work for the employer, I do not charge tax to my employer. That's what I'm getting at. The bottom bullet there, items purchased for resale. If I am a retail business, a retail store, and let's say that I sell office supplies, okay? I can buy all of the office supplies, like my pen here. I can buy all of them that are going to go into inventory in my office supply store and pay no sales tax, because I'm purchasing them to resell to you, my customers. When I sell to you, I will charge the appropriate sales tax, or if you're exempt for some reason, you will provide me with a sales tax exemption certificate. So again, those are some exceptions. There's other exceptions as well. I'm just giving you some examples of this situation. All righty, local option tax. I've mentioned this local option sales tax several times here, and I just want to expand on it just a little bit for you. Any type of retailer, including a remote seller or a marketplace facilitator, again, that's some new terminology there for this year. Anybody that's required to have a sales tax permit, okay, you've got to collect state sales tax, and you've got to collect any applicable local option tax on all taxable retail sales in Iowa, okay? The local option sales tax, or LOST as we use the acronym, that's an additional 1% sales tax that can be imposed by Iowa counties and cities. This is something, no change here for you as far as what it applies to. It applies to taxable sales that are sourced to a jurisdiction that imposes the local option sales tax. So for example, I'm over in Davenport, that's Scott County. We've got local option tax there. If I purchase something at retail and I pick it up right there in Scott County, that sale is sourced to Scott County, so I will pay a total of 7% sales tax, 6% state tax, 1% local option sales tax. Also, if the first use of a service comes in a local option jurisdiction, let's say that I was going to get a haircut over in Davenport. Again, Scott County has local option sales tax. Barber cosmetology services are taxable. So when I get my haircut, I will pay sales tax plus the local option sales tax, since my first use of that service is in a local option area. Local option sales tax does not require a special permit to collect it. If you've got an Iowa retail sales tax permit, you are all set up to take care of the local option sales tax. How do you report that? Well, when you do your quarterly sales tax return, there is a worksheet for local option sales tax, and you have to report your taxable sales by county so that we can make sure that that local option tax is sent back to the proper county. You send all of those sales tax to the department. We disperse the money to the local jurisdictions when we do the processing of the returns. We actually make 13 payments a year for sales tax to the local jurisdictions, one a month, and then there's a catch-up one in the fall to kind of round out the year, basically, is what it comes down to. If you're not sure if an area has a local option sales tax, on our website, we've got a link on there that you can click on the sales tax lookup tool, and this is kind of handy. You can punch in the exact address of where delivery occurs or where first use of a service occurs. and it'll tell you what the sales tax rate is. So that's a pretty handy tool. One thing to keep in mind, local option sales taxes can only change on July 1st or January 1st. So really you just have to be aware of changes possibly twice a year at the most. That information is out there on our website. Okay, when we're switching gears here to use tax, when it comes to paying use tax, there is a 6% tax that's imposed on the use of tangible personal property, specified digital products, and services in Iowa, okay? Use tax can generally be due in two different situations. The first one is when a retailer should have collected sales tax, but they didn't for some reason. The purchaser is now gonna owe the use tax, okay? So again, for whatever reason, the retailer did not collect the tax, it's going to fall on the purchaser to do that. There are certain transactions that are not subject to sales tax, but they are subject to use tax. Again, we've got an example here of airplanes. I know that's not a very common, possibly, example, but that's one that is pretty clear to see. That one is not subject to sales tax by Iowa law. However, use tax does apply to the purchase of an airplane. Generally, all sales tax exemptions apply to use tax. Again, look at the airplane example. That's one situation where the sales tax exemption does not apply to the use tax. But use tax, this is something that can be collected by the retailer and remitted to the state. This is called the retailer's use tax. Again, we went through some examples on that. This is for out-of-state businesses that do not meet the economic nexus threshold. They can collect and remit Iowa tax directly. They'll send it to the department. There is also what we call consumer's use tax. This is something that is remitted to the state directly by the purchaser. So what am I talking about here? Let's say, for example, that you got online and you purchased something. That's very common today. And maybe you purchased from a retail business online that does not meet the economic nexus threshold. So they don't have to collect any Iowa tax. Then it again falls on you, the purchaser. You've got to remit the consumer's use tax directly to the department. How do we do this? Well, if you are a business or an individual and you're making taxable purchases on a regular basis, that means month after month after month, this is just part of what you do. You buy some things where you're going to owe some use tax on it, okay? If that's the case, you owe use tax, you need to apply for a consumer's use tax permit, and you'll just do your regular filings with us, likely on a quarterly basis, but that information's on the application, and you'll just file returns with us regularly. If you are a business and you don't do this maybe all the time, this is more of an occasional thing, and you've got a sales tax permit, you can report purchases subject to consumer's use tax on goods consumed line 2 on the quarterly return. If you're familiar with our quarterly sales tax return, line 1 is for gross sales, line 2 is for goods consumed, which an example of that would be if you purchased something from outside the state of Iowa, you took delivery in Iowa, you're going to use it here in Iowa. You can put the cost of that on line 2, goods consumed. It will then flow through the sales tax return, and you can remit your tax to the department that way. We've also got a couple of other options for you as well. If you do owe some consumer's use tax, you can do this online on our e-file and pay system. You can get on there and you can file as not enrolled. You don't have to have a permit number to do that, and you can file and you can remit the tax to us electronically, or you can send us a check, whatever is most convenient for you. That's something that you can do. You also have the other option as well. You can get a consumer's use tax worksheet off of our website. This is something that is fillable. You can fill it out online, you can print it off, you can put a check with it, you can send it to us. So again, we have multiple ways of paying some use tax, multiple options for you. Switching gears just a little bit, I'm going on to filing information. This is something we seem to get some questions on. When you register with the Department of Revenue, you have to choose a filing status, okay? And your filing status is based on how much tax that you believe that you will be collecting. The first one up here that we have, and I'm not going to read it line by line to you, but if you are collecting and remitting more than $60,000 of tax in a year, so you're over $5,000 a month, this is quite a bit of tax that you're sending us, you would be a semi-monthly filer. And when you sign up for this, your status will stay that way until you change it, or if we happen to notice that you're in the wrong filing status, we'll contact you and let you know that you need to change. Now, I have to admit, I don't know that we have how close we watch that, to be honest with you. We want you to fall into the proper filing frequency based on the amount of tax that you're collecting. And if you should be a monthly filer, but you're only remitting quarterly, it's not the end of the world. Fill out the change form, request that it does change for you. Excuse me for just a minute. Okay, again, the semi-monthly filers, they have to do this, they have to make their payments electronically. You'll file through the e-file and pay system, and you've got to make deposits with us, and then the information is on the slide, so I don't really want to read it slide by slide, line by line for you. So that's the semi-monthly ones. Next up in frequency, we have the monthly filers, and these are for businesses that are remitting more than $6,000 in a year, but less than $60,000 in a year. So basically over $500 a month, but less than $5,000 per month. These filers will make monthly deposits for the first 2 months of the calendar quarter, and then they will file a quarterly return for the third month of the quarter. As it says on the slide there, monthly deposits are due by the 20th of the following month. So for those of you that are monthly filers, the month of May is come and gone. May monthly deposits are due by June 20th. Now, a common question that I get, people will email me or call me up and they'll say, Terry, I'm a monthly filer and I'm in your e-file and pay system. And I saw I had a monthly deposit option for April. I had a monthly deposit option for May. I don't see an option for that for June. Well, there's not a deposit option for June. You have to do the quarterly report. Every third month, instead of making a deposit, you file the quarterly return. Okay, so June, you're not going to find an option out there that says June deposit. It's going to say quarterly return for the second quarter of the year. So just keep that in mind. That's when the tax is remitted for the third month of the quarter. This one is always due by the end of the month following the end of the quarter. So the June quarter ends here June 30th. That one is going to be due to the department by July 31st. Excuse me. We also have a status for quarterly filers. These are remitting more than $120 a year in tax, but less than $6,000 per year. These folks will file a quarterly return every calendar quarter. Okay, and it's a recap for the whole 3-month period. Again, like the monthly deposits, the quarterly return is due by the end of the month following the end of the quarter. We also have an annual status. This is more hobby types of businesses, small businesses collecting less than $120 a year. They file one return with us each year, and this is always due by July 31st of the next year. So the 2019 annual filing will be due by January 31st of 2020. Now, one thing on here, I had a question the other day. I had a lady that contacted me, very nice lady, and she had been in business not quite a year. And she was having some difficulties with some things, and she is a quarterly filer. And what she was doing was she would get online on our website. She would file her quarterly return every 3 months like she's supposed to. She was doing electronic payment. That's great, except for each month she was mailing us a check. And where the difficulties were coming up is she would just send us a check. There was no filing with it because on e-file and pay, she did not have an option to make monthly deposits. She understood that she was supposed to make monthly deposits, which she wasn't. But so she'd just write out a check and send it to us. Well, the Department of Revenue gets a couple of checks each month, to say the least, and we're not always sure where it goes to. And what happened was one of her checks got credited someplace else and not for her sales tax. So she got a letter from us saying, hey, wait a minute, you owe us more money for your quarterly return. the moral to this story is, in e-file and pay, you only have options to file as per your filing status. So if you are a quarterly filer, you are only going to have options to file quarterly returns in e-file and pay. Okay. Once I explained that to her, she just had an aha moment. She's like, no wonder I couldn't make monthly deposits. She just understood that she was supposed to, and she wasn't. She was a quarterly filer. We got her squared away going forward, so hopefully she won't run into these issues that she was having. So if you're with me on this, if you're a monthly filer, or excuse me, a quarterly filer, and you think you should be monthly, you've got to submit our change form to request a change of filing status. You do not have an option in the e-file and pay to make monthly deposits if you are a quarterly filer in our system. So again, make sure that you submit the right change request if you need to change status. Alrighty, filing returns, making payments, I have mentioned quite a few times. E-file and pay, this is our electronic filing system from our website. In order to do this, you're going to need your BEN or business e-file number. This is something that is issued to you when you register for an Iowa tax permit, and do not lose that number. That is your key to get in the system. It is an 8-digit number. Put that someplace safe so you've got it. If you don't have your BEN, you cannot get in the e-file and pay system. You also need a user ID in order to file through the e-file and pay system. You will set this up the first time you get into the system. And once you get in there, it's going to be, that's the same user ID going forward. That's not something that expires or you have to change. Your password, this is something that you need to set up as well. And the password is something that has to be updated every 100 days, okay? So when your password expires, you will need to make a new password, and the system will prompt you to do that. So again, keep in mind, you must have your BEN, you must have your user ID, you must have your password. It's very important to hold on to those things. All righty. A couple of reminders for you. When it comes to Iowa sales tax, generally speaking, and I use the word generally speaking because there's always exceptions, generally speaking, the statute of limitations is 3 years. Generally, that's how far back we go in an audit situation if we're checking you out. The reason I say generally is because there's exceptions. If there's criminal intent involved in some things, there's a longer statute than that. So that's why we say generally 3 years. Also, that's how far back you can go and file a claim for refund with the department. If you bought some things and you pay tax on some services, or you pay tax on some tangible personal property, specified digital products, and you were exempt from tax, you can submit a claim for refund, but you can only go back 3 years. If you find out 5 years down the road that you shouldn't have paid tax, you're out of luck on that. You cannot submit a claim for refund because the statute is up. So just please keep that in mind. Sales tax permits do not have to be posted for public display. If any of you have been in the sales tax business for quite some time, you will maybe remember back in the day, we used to issue this fancy sales tax permit. It was about the size of a half a sheet of paper. It was printed up on some heavy cardstock, had kind of a pinkish, purplish, flowery border around the outside, and it said, you know, this is your business name, this is your sales tax permit number, you must post this for public display. When I started back with the Department of Revenue as a summer intern in 1987, one of the things I did was I went around to businesses and checked to make sure those permits were hanging up. That was a long time ago. We do not issue actual permits like that, actual certificates, and they do not have to be posted for public display. So just keep that in mind. Iowa tax permits are not a license to buy tax exempt. It is not a tax exempt number. Iowa does not give out a tax exempt number, okay? Your permits are so you can collect and or remit tax to the Department of Revenue. It has nothing to do with you being tax exempt. Tax exemption, if there is a customer claiming to be exempt for some reason, maybe you're claiming to be exempt for some reason, that's okay. You've got to provide a sales tax exemption certificate to the seller. Sales tax exemption certificates are available on our website. When I give the commercial for the website here in a minute, I'll kind of point to the link where you can find it. But that's something that you can print off on our website. You provide this to the seller. The seller keeps these in their possession, keeps record of it in case they're ever audited by the department. And these things have to be updated a minimum of every 3 years. If there's been no changes, if the customer is exempt for the same reason, they can provide you a blanket certificate that covers all their transactions. Again, assuming they're making the same type of purchase and they're claiming the same reason for exemption, that's okay. The seller keeps these in their records for 3 years, and then they have to get them updated again. You definitely want to have them updated. If you ever go through a sales tax audit, I guarantee the auditors are going to look at those. Okay, as promised here, our website, which is where all of our information is for the Department of Revenue. Our website is tax.iowa.gov. And if you were to enter that information, here's what our homepage looks like. And a couple of things I wanted to point out to you here. I have mentioned about e-file and pay. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, it does mention e-file and pay. There's a link there. That's where you click to get into the e-file and pay system. In the middle column on the home page, there's the sales tax lookup application. This is where you can punch in the address where you're making delivery to. That'll tell you what the tax rate is. It'll tell you if there's local option sales tax or not. That's a pretty handy feature. Tax publications, a couple of them that we have mentioned before was one for farmers. Somebody was asking about exemption for farmers. If you click on the publication that's in the middle column there, the third one down, tax publications, you can find the publication for farmers. It explains about the exemption for farmers. There's also many other topics as well on there. Another one possibly you might be interested in, there is one for barbers and cosmetologists. That's just an example of what we have out there. So that's a place to get some information. I've mentioned tax reform several times here today, and there are some changes that have come up here this year, starting in 2019. If you are on our homepage, we've got a scrolling banner across the top of the screen. Right now it says Iowa Tax Reform. If you were on our website, it scrolls over and puts other information out there as well. When the tax reform information comes up, click on that. That will tell you of new information. There's information for photographers on there. There's other sales tax information. Also for remote sellers, for marketplace facilitators, that information is all on there under the tax reform page. There's also a link on the tax reform page to request guidance. If you're looking through what we have and you're scratching your head saying, geez, I don't know if this applies to me or not, what does this mean? There is a link that you can request guidance to hopefully get some more information that you'll be able to treat the tax properly. The reason I clicked on this slide, though, was you can subscribe to email updates with the department. And I've got the little red arrow pointing to that link that you would click on. There are multiple topics that you can subscribe to. Myself, I subscribe to all of these topics. Now, is it something you need every day? Probably not. As I've mentioned over the years, if you've been to a webinar before, I always say I like to have the information and not need it than to need the information and not have it. So if it's something that comes up, if these emails come out, and we don't bombard you daily with emails. This is something, as we have information that comes out, we'll email you automatically. I open them up, I take a look at it. If it's something that I'm going to use or going to pertain to me, I've got a folder, I'll keep it in. If it's something that I look at and it's like, well, that's not really my thing, I just delete it. So there's no harm in it. It doesn't cost anything. You can subscribe to it or unsubscribe to it as you see fit. Kind of nice, though, to get some of the information. You never know. It might be something that does pertain to you. If you have some questions, if you're not sure about something, you can contact us. Our toll-free number is listed there on the screen, 800-367-3388, or you can call us the local number, 515-281-3114. You can speak to our customer service team. They can assist you with some things, point you in the right direction. You can also email the department. If you have a question about something, you can send an email to idr@iowa.gov. depending on what your question is, maybe I'll be one of the folks that responds to it. That's a generic email box that multiple people get in there and pull emails out and respond to it. Depending on what your topic may be, we'll try to get the person to you that can best assist you with that. So that's how you can get a hold of us and find more information. The department is also on social media. We have been for quite some time now. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. If you use social media at all, we recommend that you follow us on there. This is a good place for just to keep in contact with the department. If there are some major changes or something that comes out, we put out blurbs on Facebook and Twitter just to kind of let you know what's going on. So just another way to stay in contact with the department. A reminder to everybody, the purpose of this presentation is only for general informational purposes, okay? If you are undergoing an audit or a protest, or you've got a letter from the department, you've got to work with the person that is working on your audit or your protest, or that sent you the letter. This is not the place to get involved in those types of questions. So please make sure when you do get a contact from the department, before you call or before you shoot us an email, look at the letter. Many times it has a contact on there. I can't tell you the number of times I've talked to people and I'll say, well, who sent you that letter? You know, what's going on? And they look down at the bottom and it's like, it has the examiner's direct phone number on there. So make sure that you're calling the proper place. That'll help. That'll avoid you being frustrated by being on hold or possibly not being able to get through and not getting to talk to the person that you need to. So check that out before calling us at the 800 number. And with that being said, that's the last information that I had for you. I guess we do have a couple of minutes yet. It's almost 1 o'clock. I can look at a couple of questions here. It looks like the second one, maybe, Patrick.
Yeah, so here, I will let you look through those and you're ready to answer those questions. So it is 1 o'clock, so everyone who joined us for their lunch hour, thank you very much for joining us for this presentation. Our next webinar, which some of your questions talked about, is on out-of-state sales tax. So for people who are selling to Iowa but are companies out of the state, that is July 10th. Please sign up for that one. We'll be able to talk a little bit more deeply around this economic nexus.
Correct. And
what it means with retailers' use versus retailer sales, and what it means when you're selling to Iowa from outside of the state. So if we pass over some of those questions today, please come back in July when we can take a deeper dive at those, or reach out to the department directly to get your question answered. You can sign up for that webinar either on the Department of Revenue's website or on iasourcelink.com. So if you have to leave us, thank you very much for being here with us today. We'll take a few more minutes and try and answer a couple questions. We hope to see you again
next month
at the next one. So
correct.
Terry's had a minute to look through the list here so we can kind of answer a couple questions for you.
Okay, I'm going to take this one. If the company has economic nexus, so that means they're out-of-state company, they have economic nexus, then what tax do they need to charge for a customer located in Iowa? That would be sales tax, which includes not only the state sales tax of 6%, but if it's in a local option sales tax area, that would be due as well. So if you do have economic nexus, it means you must have a sales tax permit, and you do have to collect sales and applicable local option sales tax. All righty.
We did have a couple. Does lost apply to use tax? I think there was a couple questions towards the bottom there. So if you're making it's use tax, does lost apply to use tax?
Okay, good question, Patrick. We get that one frequently. No, lost local option sales tax only applies to sales tax. It does not apply to use tax, okay? So it has to be a sales tax transaction before it's going to be before the local option sales tax is going to apply. Let's see here. Let's scroll down to a couple more. We've got one here in a motel. Government employees, are they exempt? And the answer to that is no. A governmental employee generally is not exempt, and let me clarify that for you. I'm an employee of the state of Iowa. When I do travel on state business, I pay with my own personal credit card, and then I put in an expense claim, and I'm reimbursed up to a certain amount. that is a sale to me, Terry O'Neill. I have to pay the appropriate hotel motel taxes in that situation. There can be some situations where the federal government, it could be exempt if they are paying with a specific government card. But again, generally speaking, you're going to charge them tax just like you do any other customer. Not an exemption for that when it comes to the hotel motel taxes. This one here, I think this is a pretty good one too. People do get a little bit confused on this issue. This is from an anonymous attendee for us here. What's the difference between a sales tax permit and a resale certificate? I think this is just something that's terminology. A sales tax permit allows you to collect and remit Iowa sales tax, okay, on taxable sales and services. A resale certificate, that's another name for the same thing, basically. We don't specifically have a resale certificate. I think most people refer to sales tax, or a lot of people refer to sales tax permits as resale certificates. So I think it's just a terminology issue for you, is all. It's probably one and the same. If you've got you need a clarification on that, shoot us an email, but I think it's just a terminology issue for you. Okay, let's see what we got here.
We do have a lot of questions. If we don't get to your question live, we will take the whole list and provide it to the department to be able to get your questions answered. We've got probably 5 more minutes or so to answer these questions, so we've got quite a few outstanding. So thank you for the questions. We'll try and get as many answered here, but if we don't get to yours, it's not because we didn't like it or we didn't see it, we just ran out of time. We'll try and get that answered in a follow-up.
We're just limited here on what we can do. Here's a pretty good one here. If farmers buy vet supplies in a different state and don't pay sales tax, should they pay use tax? Okay, Andrea, this is something that's it's very specific. What are they buying? If it is a veterinary supply for some livestock, let's say they got a feedlot for cattle, we've got an exemption for vaccinations and things for agricultural livestock. So if it's a qualifying item, there's not going to be any use tax due. However, if they buy some vet supplies to take care of the dog or the cats run around the barns, there's not an exemption for that. So they would owe some use tax in that situation. What I would recommend to you, get on our website and click on the link for publications. There is one for veterinarians, and also you could check out the ag one as well. That tells you what types of supplies would be taxable and exempt for veterinarians. As in most things with sales tax, it depends on exactly what they're purchasing. So could be some use tax due if they did not pay sales tax, depending on circumstances. All righty. Glenda, this is a good one. Does a consolidated permit have a certain pattern? The answer to that is yes. That is going to start out with a 0, then there is going to be 2 zeros, then there is going to be several zeros after that with a permit number. So the consolidated 0-00-00 and then a number. That's the consolidated sales tax permit pattern. Let's see, we'll maybe take one more look here for something if we got a...
Terry, there were a lot of questions that have come in recently towards the bottom there around that new digital questions. It's
specified digital products.
Specified digital products. Apparently, there's some new
language
around use tax and some exemptions.
Correct.
Is there a publication or anything that will talk about those specified digital products and how those can work?
I don't believe that I know that there's work being done on that publication. I don't believe it's on the website just yet. For that, what I would do, keep an eye on the website. Again, I know something's in the works because I've seen some copies of it, but I don't think it's out there yet. Although I got to say I haven't looked in the last 2 days at it, but it is something that we are working on, and we'll get that out as soon as possible. Let's see, we already kind of touched on this one. Does the lost apply to use tax? It does not. Another good one as well, and I just had this question yesterday, somebody that I spoke to. Iowa churches and out-of-state churches, tax exempt on retail products. This is from Rebecca. Iowa does not have an exemption for churches, okay? So if a church in Iowa buys something for their own use, let's say that the church has to have lawn care services to mow around the church grounds, okay? That is a taxable transaction. There's no exemption for the church. If we've got out-of-state churches that come here to Iowa and buy some supplies, let's say they're buying, paper towels and cleaning supplies to take back to the church in Missouri or wherever, to an out-of-state location, that is still a taxable transaction. Iowa does not have an exemption for churches. One thing that's good, if you deal at all with nonprofits, which churches are a nonprofit, we do have a publication specifically for nonprofits. That provides a lot of good information. You might want to check that out on our website. Go to our tax.iowa.gov, click on the link for publications, scroll down until you find the nonprofit publications, and that'll give you some guidance.
I do believe we're doing a webinar on government and nonprofit sales tax issues in December of this year. So a little far off, but maybe planning for some of that end of the year piece. If you wanted to come back to that government and nonprofit sales tax webinar in December, we'll be able to go into those a little bit deeper.
That is correct. That is correct. Let's see here.
We got time for one more. We're already almost 10 minutes over.
Okay, we'll take one more here. We'll see. Let's see. This looks like a good one here. This is from Amy. If we make a purchase from our Iowa location and it is delivered to Iowa, we then move that purchase to our Tennessee location to use, is this taxable in Iowa or Tennessee? Okay, I'm assuming this is, Amy, I'm assuming this is a taxable item that you bought. You're not exempt for some reason. If you took delivery of it in Iowa, then Iowa tax is going to be due on that. Because you took delivery here. As I understand what you're saying, you bought it, you took delivery in Iowa, and then after you got it there, you shipped it off to a location in Tennessee. We're going to say that it's Iowa tax that's going to be due. All righty, we are about 10 after. We're going to have to cut this off. As I said a little earlier, if you still have questions or issued, what you can do is you can email the department. A few slides ago, I had our idr@iowa.gov. You can email the department directly, or you can call us. Our toll-free number is 800-367-3388, or the direct number, 515-281-3114. You can contact us that way, and we'll do the best that we can to give you an answer.
Once again, thank you everybody for attending today with us on behalf of Iowa SourceLink, Department of Revenue, and University of Northern Iowa. Thank you for being with us. We hope to have you back July 10th once more. That is our out-of-state sales tax webinar. So a lot of these questions around the economic nexus, we'll be able to look at a little bit deeper there. Once more, this presentation is recorded, has been recorded, and will be available on IA SourceLink to be watched at a later date. So if there's something you missed, that's also where the copy of the slides from today's presentation are also located, that you can go out and download and have there. With that, we thank you, and we will close it down, and we hope to see you in July at our next webinar.
Thanks for attending, everyone.